we are never truly lost. Well, okay, sure, maybe we get turned around for a few days in the woods, where life just feels like it's getting the best of us, and everything's going wrong. And I'm Mike Martin, and I've stood right where you're standing, lost, beaten down, like nothing's ever gonna change. And that's why I built this camp. And that's why I'm inviting you to join me and all the members of this wild community. Because you know what, friend? It does get better. So come along with me into the wild and let me show you this awesome, unique skill set that lays within inside of you. With help from the land, we're going to unlock the steward that's inside each and every one of us that will lead the way out of the darkness and into healing. Here at the Camp of Healing on Project Mindfully Outdoors. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Project Mindfully Outdoors. As always, I'm your host and your guide, Mike Martin. And actually, I got to welcome you to the fishing adventure that I've been on today. And, you know, I figured it was a good time since things have slowed down a little bit here this afternoon. But this morning was actually, it was killer this morning. It was catching a bunch of bass, bunch of pike, and really just enjoying my surroundings. And you know, that's really what makes this little setup here behind me so appropriate to set up today's conversation, because it's all about enjoying our surroundings. But in doing so, we owe it to ourselves to honor the responsibility of being prepared for whatever life may happen to throw at us at any given moment. And that's where my guest today, Zeff from mymedic.com, really shared a lot of great insight when I recently had the opportunity to sit down with him and talk about not only my medic, but also just the idea of preparation and readiness when you're out in the field and when you're in the concrete world going about your daily actions. You know, it's something that a lot of us walk around with the idea of it'll never happen to me, as we talk about in this conversation. And then we find ourselves in that moment, in that experience of we never thought would happen to us. So being that you have your feet on the ground, it's always best to take into consideration all the variables that you have no control over, and do whatever you can to put as many of those variables into your favor as possible. And that's something that we do in every aspect of our time in the outdoors. When we're out here hunting, fishing, hiking, whatever it may be, we look for any little advantage that we can find. You know, as I'm sitting here on the shoreline and I'm casting my line out, I'm constantly looking around to see what I can see that can give me a little bit of information so that I can put one more thing in my pocket of being in my favor. And it goes back, you know, way before I ever get in the truck and drive out here. It boils down to what I throw in the pack, you know, so that when I'm out there and I encounter some information or a situation, I can do something to shift on the fly, or I can take care of whatever that may be. And, I want to thank Zeff for taking the time to help me really build a conversation that I think you're going to be able to identify with and give you something to really think about. So, on the flip side of this word from our sponsor, I'm going to give you my conversation with Zeff, and I'm going to get back to fishing here. I hope you enjoy the conversation. I'll talk to you on the flip side. This episode is brought to you by our friends at MyMedic. And as you know, this is a partnership that means a great deal to me because there's so much authenticity within their mission of providing state-of-the-art first aid equipment and putting the power in your hands when those events arise that are so dispowering. Listen, we all love walking around thinking that emergencies will never happen to us. However, MyMedic was founded on an event that cost their loved one their life because they were unprepared. So don't make the same mistake. Buy now and live later. And when you visit mymedic.com, use promo code PROJECTOUTDOORS15 to save yourself 15% on your entire order. So swing over to mymedic.com and use promo code PROJECTOUTDOORS15 right now.
You know, I'm really grateful that you took the time to sit down and have this conversation. It's been an honor and a privilege to be able to, cohabitate and work together and get your message out there, get your products out there, as well as further and push my message. And I feel like a lot of it has come together based off the same sort of thing. And I find that kind of ironic because a lot of what changed my course when I faced my own personal tragedy was
Mm-hmm.
diving deep into stoicism, which was founded on tragedy.
Right.
Zeno, he endured a massive shipwreck that cost him everything he had. He wound up in Athens and kind of stumbled onto the whole philosophy train and built the school of stoicism that has helped further so many things. And I'm curious as to how the journey kind of began for you.
Yeah. So I'm Zeff. I work at MyMedic. And I think what's really cool, and there's like a really cool correlation and parallel between your story, Mike, and the company is, things founded around tragedy, right? So MyMedic, we're a first aid kit company based out of Salt Lake City. And yeah, we always say, the company was born out of a tragedy, but has been able to take that and turn it into something amazing. We're owned by four siblings. Those four siblings lost their father in a car accident about 10 years ago. It was a normal day. Driving on his way to work, semi pulled out in front of him, whole thing, bled out in the front seat of his pickup truck. No one had any equipment or training to save his life that was immediately on scene. It took EMS about 20 minutes to get there. And by the time that happened, he had already bled out in the front seat of his pickup truck. With that, the siblings decided, this was an avoidable tragedy. Our father should still be alive. We want to help and work to prevent that tragedy for others. And that's how MyMedic came to be. So we make life-saving first aid kits for just about everything. And if we don't make it for you, if something off the shelf doesn't work for you, you can definitely modify our kits to do whatever you need it to do. And so now, our mission is to prepare the everyday citizen for the unexpected emergency, whether you're driving to work on a normal Tuesday or, backpacking 10 miles off a trailhead, making sure that you're prepared for emergencies that may or may not arise.
That's something that a lot of the time as we go through life will be overlooked is the idea of preparation,
Yep.
being prepared for the unexpected. And it happens to all of us. So when
Yeah.
that happens, it's like you're kind of looking at the wall and you're like, man, I just hit this wall. I don't know what I'm going to do. But it could have been avoidable, and it had you taking the time to either learn something new, look at a different approach, or even
Mm-hmm.
in this case, get some supplies together and have them in the back of the truck ready to go.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. It's really funny because I think a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't, unless you've had something happen to you or you know someone that something has happened to. A lot of people don't think that tragedies and accidents and emergencies like this happen very often, but the reality is that they happen every day, to probably hundreds of people across the country, and thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands of people across the world. um, and it's so funny to me that I talk to people and people will say, well, that's never going to happen to me. And my response to them is always, well, I worked in customer service for my medic for a year, and in that year, there was probably at least 50 emails or phone calls we got from customers saying, "Thank you so much. Your product saved my life, or your product saved someone else's life." There's those stories that happen all the time, and then in a general first aid preparedness mindset, I think is another thing that people just lack altogether. Like maybe you don't need to worry about, you should always be worried about it, but maybe you aren't going to be involved in a terrible car accident or have a firearm discharge when you wasn't supposed to and someone ends up accidentally getting shot. Anything like that, right? Maybe it's your kid fell and scraped their knee and you don't have band-aids or gauze or anything to make them feel better in that moment. And in that moment, that is an emergency to them. Especially, I don't have any kids, but every parent I've talked to, when kids get hurt, it's like the end of the world, right? Like parents would pay hundreds of dollars to comfort their kid in that moment of fear and hurt. First aid kits, especially ours, do all of those things. They're going to cover you from bumps, bruises, and scrapes, which are going to be the things that we need all the time, almost every day for some of us. But then they're also going to have the things that you hope you never have to use, like tourniquets and pressure bandages and chest seals and the things that can save life. But just a general emergency preparedness, but an awareness about first aid and how practical it can be in your life. Set aside the trauma stuff, how practical having a good med kit can be in your life, whether you're traveling and you get food poisoning and now you're on the, your stomach's upset and you're traveling and now you just dig into your first aid kit and you take some stuff for diarrhea and you feel better. Or is that car accident, or you saw someone got hit by a car, or whatever, you're out camping and someone, takes a nasty fall, or they're cutting onions for dinner and they slice a finger off. You have that you also have that equipment to deal with that potentially traumatic and life ending injury.
It was that comment though that you know everybody walks around thinking this is never going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
So we almost kind of look at the situation from like, I don't want to prep for it because then I have to face the fear of the reality that
Yep.
it could happen to me. And
Yep.
that's a really scary line to kind of tread, because
Mm-hmm.
you walk around feeling invulnerable and then all of a sudden you're starting to prepare for something that could happen,
Yep.
and it starts to make you wonder. It starts to build that
Yep.
premise of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. That can definitely happen. I think there's a paradigm, right? Like self-awareness is so key, and being realistic with yourself and the things that can happen to you on a day-to-day basis it can be really difficult. Like you said, like, it doesn't not cross my mind when I wake up in the morning and I leave the house and I throw a tourniquet in my pocket. it's that reminder that I may have to use this, right? And I think getting over that hurdle of recognizing that preparing for these things isn't paranoia, and it doesn't cause paranoia, at least not if you have the right mindset about it. What it brings you is peace of mind, knowing that you have equipment ready and you know how to use it and you have the equipment to deal with said fear, right? Or said issue. Whereas I think a lot of people have very much the ignorance is bliss mindset. And unfortunately, I think, not unfortunately, just that bites a lot of people in the ass, right? Whether it's like a life altering accident or just like, oh man, I really wish I had a band-aid right now type thing, right? So just having that mindset and the wherewithal to have that conversation with yourself about your own mortality, your own reality, and the things that happen to people really sets up the framework for being prepared. Being prepared from a first aid standpoint, but that goes for first aid, emergency preparedness, like natural disasters, all that kind of thing. Not thinking about it and not treating it like a real thing that happens is, I think, the biggest mistake that people make. And I understandably, because it's scary to think about, but it's going to be even scarier when that does happen and you're not ready for it.
One thing that the journey over the past few years, excuse me, that the journey over the past few years has really taught me is that idea of looking at vulnerability and taking the story of powerlessness away.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at it for exactly what it is. And I feel that being a part of the outdoor community and engaging in the hunting, the fishing, and things like that, it puts you face to face with those kind of reminders every day that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm out there, and for whatever the game may be, whatever's going to end up on the plate,
Yeah.
the story is over. They, in the end, there is no real control that they have over the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But if I put myself in, say, that deer or that fish's mind in space,
Right.
the story's over there. So to come back to my footsteps, it becomes my responsibility to find every tool that I have around me to be able to enhance the moment and prolong it to the next to the best of my ability. And I feel like that's kind of the thing that we're really getting at, we're looking at here with exposing, the kits and everything like that, is you're putting power within what most people take the story and feel powerless about.
Yeah. 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 I think especially people that hunt and fish, like us, we have that. Man, I really wish I could just take everybody hunting. Like, I wish every single person I knew, I wish that I could take them on my last hunting trip or my next hunting trip, and just, I think a lot of people don't get it, but I think what's even more missed is the lessons that you learn on the mountain or in the tree stand, the lessons you learn about life and mortality and all of the cliche things I could say. As cliche as it sounds, like, you learn a lot, and you learn where you really stand in the world and what reality is, right? And that's why I wish I could take everyone with me, because I think it just gives people gives me and people who hunt and fish such a unique perspective on life and how things work. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I'm so passionate about what I do at my medic and providing and getting people life-saving first aid, because I have had that mindset shift. I have had that perspective from being in the outdoors, from harvesting an animal, from spending time, 5, 6 days alone in the mountains with my own thoughts and my own strengths and weaknesses and inadequacies. Um, that kind of that putting yourself in that kind of environment and then doing those types of stresses really can do a lot to form your mindset and help you to realize a lot of these things that we're talking about.
you hit the nail on the head there because I'm standing here having this conversation based on that. It was, you know, falling prey to the stories that depression and anxiety build within us and the self-suffering that really made me lose sight of those skills and those abilities. And
Mm-hmm.
then, to get out into the field, into the woods, and have to rely on myself was really kind of like that smack to the head that says, "Hey, look at the reality outside of that story. Step out of it." Because yeah, things are difficult, things are challenging, but you're alive right now. You're doing these things based on your own abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And then, from there, it really progressed into starting to study and really learn about what it was going on within that moment when you interact with a deer. And there was an article that I wrote back around the rut where I was standing in the tree stand, and it was a miserable day. And right around noon, this beautiful buck that I'd never seen before came out, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't shoot him. And you're standing there thinking to myself, I call myself a hunter, but I'm not shooting this buck. What am I doing? And then I realized when I thought about the week, there's a lot of anxiety in this space, and it being the rut, somehow that deer medicine kicked in and realized, I named him Longhorn, and for the fact that Longhorn is out doing his thing, regardless of the fact that whatever's around the corner, he's still doing that mission, relying on the abilities and the skills that he has. He trusts himself. So why can't we, even in the midst of a panic attack or an anxiety, binge, trust ourselves and our own abilities?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start to walk a little bit down that trail, you start to realize that not only can you do that to survive, but you can start to pick up things off of the ground, pick up a couple of roots or a couple of nuts, pine cones, whatever, and add it to the experience. So you're
Yeah.
expanding and you're starting to really grow and prosper.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Can't agree more, Mike.
That's really been the fun of this because, like I said, I've always done the hunting, the fishing, but I never, until I encountered that moment that changed the course of my life, thought about it in that sort of a sense that
Mm-hmm.
there is so much medicine out there
Yep.
that if we step outside of survival mode, we can build this camp that we can really enjoy.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I think getting outside can be scary. I think for a lot of people, especially in today's day and age. Um, I pride myself in being one of the last in part of one of the last generations that played outside, like on a playground, had recess,
Yes.
um, and did that because that was the only thing we had to do, not because that was what we chose to do, right? Um, but I think for a lot of people, younger people growing up, right now, getting outside can be really terrifying. Seems like there's a big barrier to entry, especially when you look on the internet, right? Like social media is really great and terrible, but it seems like you need all this gear and you need all these apps and XYZ product to really enjoy the outdoors. But truthfully, aside from probably 10 things, um, you really just need to get outside and gain the experience, um, and jump in head first. And that thing that was so scary initially, at least for me, started to become something that I craved, right? It started to be a place of solitude, but also a place of therapy, a place of solace for myself. And so getting over the hump of getting outside and getting over that, well, there's bears and weather and XYZ emergency could happen. And that's totally true. And like we talked about, you have to be real with yourself about some of those realities. But once you can get over those and prepare for those with the right equipment and skills and knowledge, the outdoors can be a life changing space. Um, and I know I've personally found such great therapy, and again, like I said, just craving to be outside, and what it does for me physically, mentally, what it does for my soul, the recharge it gives me. I always feel like I come back from being in the mountains and I'm just like have so much energy for life and the things I'm passionate about. It really can be that with a couple of key pieces of gear. You don't need the $700 XYZ backpack or whatever, but having a few key pieces of gear, a first aid kit being one of them, and the bravery and courage to step outside and do so with an open mind can really alter, like you said, and like you said, change the course of your life, even for people who've been doing it for forever, like yourself. But having the mindset and the perspective switch can be truly amazing.
it, it's one of those things because I do a lot of work with people that haven't exactly gotten their feet wet as
Hmm.
far as spending a lot of time outside, and even become fearful of that idea of once I lose my cell phone connection, what do I do?
Yeah.
And it's that being real with yourself, but being honest and willing to accept the answers that you find, because we get so caught up in the world today that we don't rely on ourselves the way that we really
Hmm.
should.
Yep.
And that's one of the first real eye-opening things that a lot of people that I take out into the field walk back to the truck with.
Hmm.
After that first long hike, they're like, "Man, I did that, and I believe that I could go even further."
Hmm.
The fact that my cell phone didn't work after like the first 10 minutes, it really wasn't that big a deal.
Yep.
And it's kind of ironic sometimes because you think about the fact that I've been doing this my whole life. So way before the cell phones were ever there and all this modern technology, I'd just go out and I'd get lost. And if I found my way back in a day or two, great. Or as Daniel Boone, used to always say, maybe I got turned around in the woods for 3 or 4 days, but I found my way home.
Hmm.
And that's one of those skills that it's so much fun to teach somebody.
Yep. Yeah. That, and I think you brought up a really good point. Like, I think people are, especially outside, I think people are a lot more competent and capable than what they initially think, than this preconceived notion they have of their abilities in their head. Like the cell phone service thing is a great example. Like, I know plenty of people who I've taken out and they're like, well, isn't there going to be no cell service there? I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Like, I want this thing to stop going off. Like,
Exactly.
and that freaks some people out. Or I remember my girlfriend and I took this couple friend of ours out camping for the first time, and like one of the wife's question was like, well, where do we go to the bathroom? And it's like, you just go and you dig a hole and you go to the bathroom and you cover your crap and you're done. And that was like such a foreign concept, but it's like, and it seems like such a strange thing given today's modern society. But yeah, I think a lot of people are way more confident or way more capable and competent in the outdoors than they think they are. And it's, again, like we're just kind of talking in circles at this point, but it's having that the willingness and the courage to try it. And I think a lot of people end up getting the bug after their second or third, fourth trip out, and they kind of get their feet under them and a little bit of a foundation. And it's like, okay, this is what I want to do this for the rest of my life. I want this to be a part of my lifestyle. And then you really get to start to build that deeper connection with being outside and the natural world and all of the wonderful things that connection can bring into your life. Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things I love about these conversations is they get so personal and they bring up the stories of how I
Mm-hmm.
got from A to B. And I think one of the best examples I can give to round that out is how in the concrete world I was constantly walking around looking for my value and my worth
Mm-hmm.
to be dictated to me, to be
Yeah.
given to me by somebody else. And then to get out into the wilderness and realize, yeah, it's my own 2 feet that are carrying me. It's my own 2 hands that are, pulling me along or doing what I got to do. So that worth and that value is something that's internal.
Yep.
And, one thing that I really truly love about the outdoors is it's a space that is safe and
Mm-hmm.
you can go out, you can practice all of these different things that you pick up either from a book, a video, whatever the case may be. You get this training almost through like a third eye sense because you're kind of watching it, you're not doing it. Then you
Mm-hmm.
go out into the space and you're able to put these different skills into practice and hone them. And then it turns around and it actually has impact on, your day-to-day life within the concrete
Yep.
world,
Yep.
which is something that I want to transition into is the fact that, when I made my first purchase from my medic, one thing that
Mm-hmm.
surprised me was the emails that came about the actual training,
Yep.
the actual how to do these things.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I truly have valued because I think I've learned and gained so much out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. My medics really, we're really interested in the space. Like, I think, and obviously I have a bias because I work there, but I think hands down our product is the best out there, for the everyday citizen. But we recognize that having a piece of equipment and knowing how to use a piece of equipment are two different things. And so to help combat that, um, a lot of people don't have any professional medical training on how to use a tourniquet or how and when to use packing gauze or a chest seal. Um, so we were like, okay, well, what can we do to help people do that? If someone, just because a first aid kit would have been there when the father was in his car accident doesn't necessarily mean that someone would have been able to save his life because they would have needed to know how to use it. So we sat together. We got with our education guy Billy. He's a former special operations combat medic. He's been doing medicine for like field medicine, combat medicine for 20 years. And we're like, okay, we want to put together a digital course and teach people how these like 3 or 4 basic principles of trauma first aid. Then we're like, okay, oh, and let's give it away with every kit that gets purchased that has those items. Perfect. So we put the work in, did that, shot the course, and now when you buy the pro kit from my medic that has tourniquets and quick clot and pressure bandages and chest seals, you're going to get that kit, but you're also going to get a course taught by a medical professional on how to use those things, when to use those things, to really just have this, holistic approach to first aid, and which I think is like something that's really missing in a lot of the spaces in the outdoor industry. I think everyone loves gear. Not everyone loves to learn how to use it properly. And we wanted to, be different in that way. So that's something that we offer. And then like obviously through our Instagram and our YouTube, and our TikTok as well, we also just provide a ton of free educational content, on survival and obviously lots of first aid stuff. But then just sharing things, and the knowledge that our crew has between myself and a couple of others who spend a lot of time outside, and obviously Billy, who's got a ton of first aid knowledge. Just sharing that knowledge with people so they can be more prepared, regardless of their hobbies and what they're using their kits for. So yeah, the education piece has been huge for us, and we don't plan on stopping. We've got more courses and things coming down the pipeline, to help educate people, digitally. So
It's that concept of once your cup is full and it starts to overflow, you want to tell everybody about it. You
Mm-hmm.
had the experience that changes your course, you learned from it, and you perfected the skills, and now you want to share that and you want to put that out
Mm-hmm.
there because it contributes to the greater good of things.
Yep.
It's not about the bottom line. It's more about giving back to humanity. So that way maybe somebody else doesn't have to endure the same experience that you've endured because you taught them, you prepared them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's what I feel is the most authentic version of a mission. And will really, to draw back to the beginning of this conversation, it's what makes me feel so honored and privileged to be having this talk and
Yeah.
have this relationship going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. We've been doing we've been doing the My Mag thing for 6 years now. I've only been on the team for about 3. But yeah, it's been a ride. And like I said earlier, like the stories we get back, and when we get someone that writes in and says, I use this product to save someone's life, those those are our paydays. Like it's great to have, do well sales and Black Friday and all that kind of stuff. But the days that are real special to us are days when the mission is fulfilled, right? When the product and the service that we provide stands up to what it's supposed to do, and we get to hear about that, right? Those are the paydays for us. Like everything else is just cherries on top.
That's how it is around Camp here. But you mentioned the word mission. I
Yeah.
want to dive. I want to dive down that rabbit hole because we all go through life and we're kind of like at a moment where we're questioning, hey, is this really all there is? I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the grind, working 9 to 5,
Yeah.
doing the wife, the kids, the family thing, but it feels like I'm missing something. And it's that mission, that
Mm-hmm.
purpose, and being able to discover that.
Yep.
And I'm curious as to, your take on that. How does one go about uncovering and unlocking what their true purpose is so that it's not about just the bottom line. It's about the payday being the satisfaction and fulfillment of achievement.
Yeah. I think it loops back to what you said about having a full cup. I think finding the things in life that fill your cup is a really good indicator of a personal mission for yourself, right? Um, I think as a company, obviously, the things that have happened to the siblings and the owners of the company, I think the mission was, I think sometimes life hands you missions. Like, I think sometimes it's cut and dry, um, depending on the things that happen to you. But finding your own, I think, is something that can be very personal. Um, I think there's no one way to get there. But for me, and just where I'm at in my limited 7 years in existence, um, yeah, I just feel like the things that I do and feel like I get the most return spiritually, um, are the things that I should be doing more of, and the things that make me feel most fulfilled. So typically, I take those things as my personal mission. So being outside, spending time with friends, giving back, and these are all kind of cliche sort of answers, but yeah, I think that's my 2 cents on it, Mike.
I love that. And there's a line from The Wind Is My Mother where Bearhart talks about that exact same concept.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you almost stumble into a mission in life, a
Yeah.
purpose, and you start to actually, you're not just treading water, but you're actually making progress and fulfilling that.
Mm-hmm.
It really sings from your soul.
Yep.
And when you start to sing and start to branch out that way, it brings out the authenticity, and that really starts to shine a light on the actual direction that you're intended to go.
Yeah, totally. Couldn't agree more.
So as we start to wind this down, though, I've got one question that I love to hit everybody with, and
Sure.
that is from the backwoods to the medic office and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
You've got to leave us with some inspiration and some motivation to continue our journey going forward toward our purpose.
Yeah. I think on the product side, what I'd love to leave you, Mike, is just like, because I know you work with a lot of backpackers and obviously outdoors. So a couple product recommendations, and then yeah, we can go from there. I think on the product side for my medic, I think something, and the adventures, like being outdoors is so funny to me, like, and the tie-in with first aid, because you don't typically think of first aid as an outdoor, like, it doesn't seem like it's part of the industry. Um, but I think what first aid can do is keep you outdoors longer, which I think is what we all want. The last thing you want is to have a you nicked yourself with a knife, or scraped, really bad scraped knee, or what have you, be the reason your trip ends short. Um, so a couple products that I think would do real well. We've got a hiker medic. It's super light, bare essentials for hiking. You're going to cover your most common hiking injuries. So that one's going to be a great one. I think it's also always a good idea to have a really good first aid kit back of your truck. That's going to be able to sustain you longer should you need. Our MyFac line is super great for that, which is probably, if I remember right, the kit you have. That's probably riding around in your truck. Came with the training.
Yes.
Yep. And then some sort of on your person at all times. Again, my opinion, on your person at all times, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's backpacking or driving to work or you're in the office, is a tourniquet. So, I think a lot of the other first aid items you can kind of improvise: chest seals, gauze, roll up your t-shirt, stuff like that. But tourniquets are real hard to mimic, especially commercially produced ones. So always having a tourniquet in your hunting pack or in the glove box of your vehicle is always a good idea. Yeah, and I think people will get a lot of use out of their first aid kits if they have them available, which I think a lot of people don't. So I think people think people think, oh, I won't use that, and it's like, you probably think you won't use it because you don't have one right now and realize its utility.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that, you know, you don't necessarily think you need until you need it.
Yeah,
And then when you do
definitely.
need it, it's not there and you're in trouble.
Yeah,
But then again,
for
it's
sure.
also one of those things that you walk down, the aisle at Walmart and you're like, oh, that looks like it's good for $5 or whatever.
Yeah.
But honestly, to really, as I've discovered, from actually having this relationship going on, getting the actual gear, actual stuff that is ready and they're in hand, really
Mm-hmm.
intended for those situations, brings so much peace of mind
Yeah,
that it makes every adventure that much more enjoyable.
totally. Yeah. Having a first aid kit should be something that, you know, increases and deepens your experience outdoors, because it's one less thing that you have to worry about. There's a lot of factors and variables that can happen when you step outside, but having control of some of those, or at least a better grasp on some of those things that can happen, can really richen that experience.
It definitely does. And I'm learning more and more each day about this aspect of things that I never considered. So,
Sure.
the more that I learn, the more peace of mind I get. And the
Yeah.
more, with the old hunting adage, the things that you can control, you want to really pay attention to, because there's
Yeah.
so many things that are outside of your control.
Hmm.
And the more you hone in on it, the more you pay attention to it, the better the experience is
Yeah,
in the long
definitely.
run. Well, brother, I want to thank you one more time for doing this. I greatly
Of course, man.
appreciate it. And if you want to let people know where they can reach out to
Yeah.
you, my medic, anything.
Yeah. We're biggest if anyone's into social media, we're biggest on Instagram. It's just MyMedicOfficial. MyMedic.com is our website. We do tons of training and education, like we mentioned, stuff on our social. And then, yeah, if you want to, we run sales and, provide all sorts of educational content to people via our email list. So go ahead and go sign up for that. Yeah. I mean, I think we're one of the best resources that anyone who spends out time outside could have, in terms of just having some skills and some knowledge about taking care of yourself outside. um, yeah, I just would hate for people to miss it. So definitely, if you're interested, go check it out. Check out our kits. If you've got any questions about what kit might be best for you, feel free to reach out to our customer service team, and we can get you pointed in the right direction.
Awesome, Zach. Well, thank you very much. And I'm sure we'll catch up again down the line sometime soon.
Of course, yeah. Thank you for Mike for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure.
Most definitely.
All right, that's it. That's all. That is the end. We've reached the end of yet another edition of Project Mindfully Outdoors. And one more time, I want to thank Zeff from My Medic for helping me share this really important message with you, but also taking the time to really introduce My Medic to you. Because, it was a few months back that I had the opportunity to jump on board and partner with My Medic and be able to, bring those life-saving first aid products to camp. And you guys have been absolutely amazing in your response. And from that, not only myself, but Zeff and everybody else from the My Medic family sincerely wants to thank you. And if you haven't taken the opportunity yet to add the My Medic packs to your arsenal that you carry every day, then swing over to mymedic.com and check them out. You'll be grateful that you did. There's an adage that they use now, which is called buy today and live tomorrow. And I think that is some of the most powerful and wisdom filled advice that anyone can pass along. So, like I said, swing over, check out mymedic.com, use promo code PROJECTOutdoors15, save yourself some money. That way, you survive should you ever find yourself in one of those situations. And until next time, get out there in the wild. That's where the stillness and the adventure lies. See ya. Hey, friend, it's Mike. And before we get out of here today, I just want to say thank you for being a part of this camp and for tuning in. And I'd love to see you swing over to projectmindfullyoutdoors.com, sign up for the newsletter, which is jam-packed full of tips, tricks, and everything else you could need for your outdoor adventure. But it's also full of important, thought-provoking meditations that can help you when you return from the adventure and jump back into the concrete world. And while you're there, check out the thing that I'm super excited to be launching this summer. And that's the Mindful Adventure series, where you get out here in the field with me and I teach you amazing life saving skills, meditation skills that can help you grow, and also outdoor wilderness adventure skills that'll help to expand the journey that you're taking. And most importantly, we'll hit the field and we'll hike and we'll enjoy what it is that nature has to offer. So until next time, we'll talk soon.